education side of it. I got the memo that was put out concerning two proposals that are out there, but I didn't see anything that being for online education or online continuing education. And I know we came down this road a while ago, looking at continuing education, and it did not go through at the time when I was sitting on the board. It failed considerably, and you know, we keep bringing it back up, and it's obvious for whatever reasons. I mean, I'm not against it, but at the same time, everybody else is. If we keep bringing it up, and if we all going to put it back in place, why not we're optioning continuing education online for the convenience of those who can't go to specific places and things like that, where they can use their iPads and iPhones to take continuing education. You know, we don't get any of this information. We just see a proposal, but it doesn't entail specificity to what the board is intending to do, so that we can inform the auctioneers and the public as to the direction that the board may be going in. That's somewhat alarming to me, and I thought last meeting that the board would become a little bit more transparent and just trying to advise us of, you know, its intent in this direction. I mean, we're not here to work against the board, we're here to work with the board, especially LALB. It's informing the auctioneers base and the consumer base of, you know, what's going on inside this room that they need to be aware of, or they should be aware of. And continuing education is one of them. Mr. Quinn, who proposed to discontinue it, came down last meeting, stated his firm position of opposition, and we're bringing it back again. I haven't seen anything. I'm asking that the board would elaborate. I think Mr. Burns has an item agenda on here, because there are things we can't talk about unless we know about it. And I think that's something that the board needs to consider, because, you know, sometimes y'all bring things out that are not even on the agenda itself, or maybe on the agenda but not spelled out in particular. And that's all we're trying to find out, is what's the board perspective for us, the online convenience. You know, if we're going to do it, I mean, somebody needs to consider that, hey, we need to let the auctioneers have some freedom in their perspective of, and I'm saying this because I'm a proponent of education, and if we're going to do it, don't confine us or bind us to having to go places to get it, when there are credible continuing education online services that are out there. And I know there's several of them that people would love to avail themselves to, and having not to get up, go pay for gas, mileage, and everything else, trying to go somewhere to get it. And I think the board needs to really kind of hammer down on it if you want to get the consensus of the auctioneers to come on board, is looking at continuing education from an online perspective as well. That would give some latitude to maybe more acceptability of the auction industry. And I don't know where y'all stand this time, Cam, but I'm asking because I don't know either. I mean, I read what was proposed, but it was unclear. And I totally, I don't say this derogatory, but I don't think the board should be in control of it. I think the board should have a standard where online education or continuing education is universal across the state, and not be able to determine this year we may do it, next year we're not going to do it. This year we can do it, next year we think about doing it. I think if you're going to do it, let it be standard across the board, and let it be fixed in writing that continuing education is here, this is what is required, 6 hours or how many hours, and these are the providers that you can utilize in order to accomplish that. So I'm just asking, because I don't have any clarity on it, but if someone would give some clarity to it, it would be a little bit more palatable for me to be able to, you know, look into it and say, okay, this is good, this will work. Because I'm not against it, but I'm also not going to go forward if there's not any latitude of convenience for the auctioneers who have to go from one place to the next and have to come. I mean, online, everybody has cell phones in here, and we know that those cell phones are about convenience. We can get online and do their spam, and we can take our tests right there, or take our information there. Let's make it like that. Everybody's using the convenience, let the board do so as well.
try to answer your questions since you've asked questions. Let's clear this up because I know there was email sent and so forth. There was a motion to reinstate continuing education at the last meeting. It passed. Now we have it with Anna who's writing it to get it passed.
The statute.
With the statute. So it's not in the statute yet, but it did pass. So someone has to take this on. In the past, we had online education when we had it. So I'm assuming, which is probably not a good thing, that we will have it again. However, when we get to that number 7, statute revision with Anna, we will present it, which she has written, and then the board will address that. So I understand your concerns. Of course, I'm for online continuing education. Everyone cannot travel, like you say. So that will come up. But that's where we are as of right now. It hasn't even passed.
Yes, sir. I thank you for the question.
With regard to continuing education, you know, and I know you pretty well stated it pretty eloquently as where what your position is, and I think Reverend Phillips mentioned it, you know, as well about the convenience of online. That was, I know, a sentiment that was expressed, and I provided the information that I assume that the board has from a gentleman from Illinois who wants to at least be considered, Mr. Drury is his name. He provides online education that is nothing but auctioneer doesn't provide for any other profession. I think he said he's either 7 or 9 states. At any rate, I told him we weren't the ones to speak with, that you know, the board was the appropriate party to have that information, and so I forwarded it on, including his curriculum vitae and the whole 9 yards. Excuse me. But I do think that your sentiments stated pretty well that if it is going to be reinstated, that the convenience. I mean, we live in an environment of everything being done much more conveniently, technology-wise, and I believe, and he, well, yes, I will, because this is my only opportunity to speak of that. You know, he states that, you know, utilizing videos and whatnot to present the material. I know there's online school providers here for things like real estate, particularly Bob Brooks. Everything is done that way. With an interaction, they even stream it to where you can pose questions or whatnot. So I think it was logistically the convenience of being able to do that right there from your living room if the board is going. Now, I'm not an auctioneer anymore, so I'm kind of, I guess, infringing a little bit. But I'm just expressing the sentiments that I would have had if I still was, and that I think a number of other auctioneers, if the board goes forward with this, would at least appreciate the convenience of being able to fulfill any such requirement remotely, you know, through modern technology, as opposed to having to get in the vehicle. And I think Ms. Jacobs referenced it when I know she's not here today, but I think she made the statement that when they did have continuing education before, there were several times that she had no choice but to drive all the way up to North Louisiana, which, you know, given that she's in New Orleans, I think that's an awful lot to ask of anyone, you know, to fulfill the requirements. They have to go 300 miles, give or take, and yet I think there were situations when the CE was applicable where when you only had one seminar or presentation left, that's pretty much the only choice you had. If you wasn't able to make the other ones, I realized they were conducted on multiple locations through the state, but if you had conflicts and you got down to that one, unless you did take it online, which I know a number of people did, that's the only choice you had left. So I know I'm not an auctioneer anymore, but I think I speak for a number that would like that convenience. And that'll be it. I appreciate it.
Continuing education statute.
So if I may,
Okay.
okay, so y'all approved the education, and we must now decide on what we want to ask the legislature to approve. Now, that means we would have to have a legislator actually take it there, and actually put it to the legislature. As you know, we repealed the last step we had, so this would be a new event. I've attached today, and you shouldn't have it, I think it's the end of your packet, the proposed versions now. There are two versions, and these are not set in stone. We can talk about them in a number of different issues. We're not going to be as detailed, and you'll see 3115.1, continuing education at the bottom of this. This is actually what we had before, which is very detailed and in the statute.
No, actually, sorry. Are you saying B is what we had before?
At the bottom of page 1, 3115.1.
Right.
A, B, and C, I have just updated.
B?
3115.1, revised continuing education requirement mandatory.
Right.
That's basically what we have updated.
B, we did not have B before.
No.
No, okay. You just said we did. We did not. So you were adding B to say that an owner, an officer, a
Oh, no, we
director-
had that, no, that would be, yes, we did. Now, I said that correct.
Just didn't have the effective date.
The effective date had changed.
Wait, so are you telling me, I'm confused. Please explain that. You're saying,
That we had, yes, we had continuing education for businesses.
an owner, an officer, director, or office manager of each business license.
Or that was the proposal, yes. That was the earlier proposal we had. I think we implemented it, but I had to go back and forth. Okay.
That was never in effect ever
Okay.
before.
Okay. I just pulled up my notes from the old
No.
statute.
And I have a bunch of board members saying that I'm correct. That was never in effect.
Okay.
If you don't have a license, you want,
So this is people just with a business license.
proposing
You got
that.
a business license.
They'd be on business license.
I get
That's
that.
what she's saying.
Right,
You might have some outside people, not auctioneers, that are on the business line.
right.
Because the biggest problem we have with businesses.
So we have never had that in the past, so this is something new.
Not that I'm
Okay.
No,
This
we
would
did
be,
not.
still would be part of the discussion. Are we going to require our business licensees to have separate continuing?
So what if the business is open
We
the
need a
whole?
motion to discuss
We need a motion to discuss this. Both attorneys are saying no, it's on the agenda, we're just talking about, I just want to be clear. So you're saying if an auction business, well, A, they have to need to call a sales manager of business. So you're saying that the owner or the office manager or someone besides the
Yes.
licensed auctioneer has to go to continuing education as well?
Because they're the ones who are actually physically taking the money. That was the reason that it was suggested. And this is a judge, y'all make the decisions, that's just, I'm putting it out there so we can discuss it.
So
Because
what
that
if
was
the director is an auctioneer, then they don't have to do it?
Right,
Well, they would do it for their own license.
yeah,
Right,
In-house, but-
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you wouldn't have, like, if the owner's not, they wouldn't have to go as well to the continuing.
Right. Yeah, we're talking about someone who is going purely for the AB number. Because we aren't giving AB numbers right now to auctioneers who have an individual license.
Someone out of state or someone who owns an auction business living on auction.
That's what.
Okay, so
If you're an auctioneer, you got somebody in Louisiana that's partners in an auction business with you, that's where Ann's at is. You could be the auctioneer calling the sale, but you don't necessarily own any of the stock of the business. That's where she's coming from.
well, actually, she's saying you could be the office manager.
Well, yeah, in other words, that was.
This is pretty vague.
Yeah.
It's very
I
vague.
understand the point,
Well, let me go back to where I was before, because we sort of got off a little bit. The top one, the first half of page 1, section 3112C, 3115A5, that's what we call a discretionary. In other words, we put in the statute that there will be continuing education, and the board approves all of the policy with regard to that. That is done by some boards, not most boards do set at least the minimum number of hours, as well as some requirements, but that's your minimum number for simply saying, legislature, we're going to do continuing education, but we'll implement it, we'll decide who has to go, we'll decide what they have to take, and we'll do that by regulation. The second version is mandatory, which is, again, basically very similar to what we had before, and if we did not implement that, it was in the original suggestion, so that's what I pulled this from, for our original continuing education. so that it basically says, you'll see that A is on individual auctioneers. 6, when I looked at other states, 6 hours is sort of standard, but I'll be honest with you, when we were doing this before, 6 was way too much in some cases. We just had trouble finding 6 hours of content.
Because nothing's changed. We don't have any laws changed.
We don't have laws changing.
Right.
We're a little different than other states for that reason. So the minimum number I found is 4 hours per year. You can do it on a biannual basis, et cetera. But if we're asking the legislature just to give us the power to implement continuing education as a regulation, then we can discuss this, if the legislature passes it. There's no guarantee this legislature will pass a statute, just to be honest with you. And that's part of the situation we have to deal with. This is by no means set in stone.
All right, so what's the next step? What do you?
You tell me what, basically what you want to do. Do you want to set minimum number of hours? Do you want to do it as discretionary? You decide later. Who will have to take it and how often? Whether you're going to do it on annual or every other year basis, which is what a lot of boards are doing. That's basically where we are right now. If you want to get more detailed about what you want to put in the legislation and make it, mandatory, which is what we had before, then we need to resolve a lot of these issues now because we've got the legislature coming up in a couple of months.
I think it ought to be discretionary and then the board can adopt the rules, is what I would like to see.
Do you want to set the hours so we can't get into that discussion later and I that? And how many hours would you like to? And also some boards will
How
say.
many hours you take? 6?
6.
What's on 6?
Let's see. Arkansas has 6 hours.
Mississippi?
I didn't see
Don't have
that
it.
they had any.
What, Freddie? Sorry.
They don't have any
They don't have it.
communication.
They don't have any.
If you do a discretionary, and you do it by giving you the authority later, and you do it by regulation, that still has to go through the
Legislature.
Administrative Procedures
Right.
Act. And whatever you decide will ultimately be again reviewed by potentially by a legislative committee.
Right.
Not necessarily going to happen, but if you decide we're going to do this, 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 and this, it has legislative oversight.
Right. All of your regulations have gone through the process of the legislature.
That's why we had to put that 6 month, didn't we, like we did before?
Yes, when there's a comment.
Yes.
Time.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just, whose phone is that?
He can't hear.
Your phone?
Oh, sorry. I thought turned off.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let me just make sure I have this straight. What you just said, Lori, is that if we go with the discretionary, we're just going to ask them to let the board say that it's to vote to do continuing education on a.
As needed.
Basically, you set it by regulation, which would be set potentially with a hearing. You would certainly do it in the meetings to, an open meeting as far as what you wanted to do. And you could make your proposals, then you could change them without having to go to the legislature. That's the benefit. You still have to go to the regulatory process and you notify the legislature. There's no guarantee the legislature will come here.
The real problem when you try to do a statute just as specific, if they tinker with, they don't understand what y'all do. I'm talking about the legislature, and if you do something specific and they tinker with it, it may not be workable for you. So it'd be easier to do discretionary.
The only thing that I see a lot of boards doing is they do set the hours so that that's publicized and it cannot be changed every year, Or you can do a minimum of 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, and then you can add more to the regulatory process.
And then you say or who can qualify, what they could have to do.
So what about
If
if,
they need farms, they might need access. They never get home to Texas.
Well, this is, let me say this is not gonna solve the Texas problem.
so the people that have to get their time in Texas can go.
Well, because Texas requires Texas law.
Okay, so let me ask you, what to do if we go with discretionary, then each part of this would have to be a motion and pass?
Yes, you would basically.
Number of hours, what type of,
Who
where
would,
you can get
the
credit.
standards for continuing education, whether it's online or in person.
Similar process that you went through with the apprenticeship program last year.
Each one would have to go.
And I reckon last time, part of the problem we had was, number one, we had mandatory, so we couldn't change it very easily, we had to go to the legislature. Number two is there were some misconceptions about how it was to be administered, what content would be in it, how it was paid for, et cetera, which got very confusing.
It did, and then also got to the point where year after year after year it was the same class
material.
because there wasn't enough classes. So I had to sit through how many inches do you post or classify ad for 5 years. I took that same class over and over.
And that was one of the reasons we got rid of it.
Right.
But I'm looking, a lot of states seem to think that they can find 6 hours of content. I have no idea what they're looking for.
Right, because, but anyway, we have a year to come up with that, right? Because this doesn't go in effect until 2017.
If it passes the legislature.
If it passes, so
We gotta get through the legislature this spring to do it by 17, though.
we have to get it through the legislature.
And I can
If
change
we
that
don't
to
get it
18.
through discretionary, then there's no point of even talking about all the other things because it didn't pass. So
Right.
basically, the first step is to see if we can get it passed.
Or we got a 60-day session.
Yes.
This is live, this
It's
is.
an even year.
It's even here.
It's
So it's-
not,
It's
90
It's
90-day session.
60 days within a 90-day period.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's when whoever sent out this email blast thing for everybody to come to this meeting when there's nothing to discuss it, that's when they can have their say, right? And
Right.
I'll
You would have to
have a
put it on
say.
the
Why do you
agenda.
keep sitting there telling me no?
No, ma'am, I wasn't doing that.
Oh,
I was doing this.
No, shaking your head no.
No, I was doing like this here.
I know.
But I wasn't doing that.
Shaking your head,
It was something was said over here.
no. Oh, okay.
Oh.
All right. Distracting.
And
Okay.
let me say this, one of the things is, this is the LAA asking for this, and we would need their cooperation as far as getting it to a legislator or getting it passed to the legislature. As a board, we can only present it as housekeeping in case the industry, to actually get it recognized by the legislature and passed. Because last thing we want is to do it today and then have all the auctioneers show up and say, we don't want to continue education.
Right. Well, that's possible.
No, and then you have a lot of
Home.
The LAA passed it last year, it's annual.
Right.
They're not gonna be opposed.
No, I know they're not, they can't even talk about it. I know a lot of other auctioneers are definitely opposed to it.
So that's
But
what
they'll have their say then, because they can really have a say in front of the board, so they can have a say.
right, they can
Right.
talk, but generally, if we leave it sort of bare, then, they may encourage the legislature to make it more precise. We are only making these suggestions to the legislature.
Now, Larry, you want to do it how, just mainly generic?
I think y'all, it's the easiest
The
and
easiest,
the most flexible.
Anna worded the easiest way you can to get
That's
to the
what I did.
legislature.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
top part,
then-
not the bottom part.
You
This
talking
one
about
where it
this.
says mandatory, that says, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to do it. I don't even have dates for the implementation of the top part, so it looks like it's not ready, then we could push it back to 2018.
That would, if you don't have an effective date on here, then it will be August 15th of 2016 if this top
Right.
part passed.
But it doesn't say that we have to accept the renewals on a particular date, so I don't know that, because we don't have an inception date as far as when it starts.
Well, that's a perfect example as to why you want to have it discretionary, because when you start accepting people's licenses, who does it really start with? I mean, who's involved?
If you put mandatory, you're gonna end up with a deadline, et cetera. And I don't know that we're ready to implement it, because we have all these
But if
these
you got it,
questions.
I mean, it would take through 17 to get it done. I think.
You may have a legislator say, I like what you're discretionary, but I want a minimum number of hours, so they'll.
Or a definite start date, or a, question of cost involved, or an obligation from the board to provide those. Those are all in some of the various statutes.
Well, if we do it on the internet, and let the internet be part of it, which I'm for, I'm not against, then there's gonna be a fee for it. And I don't think the board should pay the fee.
Well, none of this is going to be done.
No.
Board generated.
Everybody has to pay their own.
Everybody pays their own fee,
Right,
like now,
that's why it's
before
a
the
hardship.
board paid it.
No.
I never paid a dime to go to seminar.
Well, that was part of,
on, but the board.
License.
But of course you paid for everybody who didn't take online, but whoever took the online class had to pay the school directly for the online class.
And that's all I'm saying. When we get into board paper, it's not gonna be like it was before. Now, we're gonna have to approve it for the continuing education curriculum. The board needs to approve it. So I'm out to try to provide it. And no offense to this guy in Indiana, like it's from him, we gotta have guidelines, what's permissible and not permissible. And that needs to come through the, I guess, the NAA education norm, I guess. What are you smiling at?
Jeff. He's smiling.
Well, I
I just smiled back at him. He had a big smile on his face.
but anyway, a lot of, like I said, if you want us to go and prepare this and submit it, see if we can find a legislative board to carry it to the legislature to get passed,
Just need,
Then-
you need to go hog tie Johnny.
he's got to willing to do that.
He told me he, if it come down absolutely, if he do it, he'd do it, but he didn't want to, but he don't want to do it.
Right. That's exactly what he said.
I mean,
Yeah, he
Johnny,
can't hear
Johnny
exactly
Quinn's got to
what
understand,
But
Johnny Quinn's
again-
75 years old too.
Well, let me say this.
He's fixing to be,
Anyway,
So when would this, okay, so the board would have to vote today to say discretionary or not?
yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's coming up. We got to have it submitted shortly.
it's got to be
Pre-files
him
will
before
start
we
soon.
meet. Doesn't it, Larry?
Well, no, the session, well, there's special sessions coming up in February.
Yeah, but you
Right.
can't put it in here.
It can't be unless it's
No,
on the call.
unless it's
So
on the call.
it wouldn't be in the call.
It's going to be
But
April.
March, I think you still have enough time to do it, don't you think? I don't.
Well, they don't agree with it, because I think you've got a deadline
You
right
gotta
before the
submit,
beginning.
submit filing it.
And we gotta-
But this is 15 days.
But this is not a limitation. This is a full-blown, you can have as many pieces of legislation as you want.
Right.
So this is not the 5 limit that you normally have in a fiscal.
In this week.
So, if you give me a moment, I'll check to see what.
Oh. I do know how to turn it on. Thank you very much.
When's our next meeting? March?
March 8th.
Can I? Yes, ma'am. In the line of continuing education, even under discretionary, and I know you said you can't find 6 hours, but I think we can get online providers, if we ask them to give us 6-hour curriculums. Because that's more easier than sitting in a class, and it's less inconvenience if you can do it at your discretion.
Right, but however many hours it has, you have to be in class or online, it has to be equal.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, I'm saying it's probably easy.
The session starts March 14th. So you would have time, you would have,
Yeah.
your meeting if you could still do it.
Rick, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
You ever took one of these online classes?
Yes.
You sat at that computer for 6 hours and every 15 minutes you
What?
didn't get it, you're sitting there.
Yes, sir, I have to take it for ethics and other areas like that, so I have to, continue to sit there, and I'm in a computer age now where everything I do is primarily online. Some people are
I
not,
understand, all I'm asking, you're very well aware, I've sat through this deal in other states. And, I mean, every 15 minutes I gotta log in and I'm sitting in front of that computer, you just can't turn it on and leave.
no, you have to, there's questions that you have to answer, and you have to touch that screen.
Just make sure you're aware of that, because you were talking about doing it on a phone while ago on a tablet.
Well, yeah, on my tablet, I mean,
Hard
just
to do.
convenient. Mr. James, I'm for what you for is just continuing education. I can say this, that whatever the board
We're all
wants.
on the same page.
Yes, sir.
That's all. If we got time, I guess we hash it out next meeting.
Our fiscal report, we could go ahead and do that, with discretionary, that's what you want to do. Because it would not be difficult, we would have to do a fiscal note for the board prior to getting it to the legislature, or getting it heard, actually.
Whatever
So,
you gotta do, I guess.
but does the board feel that discretionary is probably the way you want to do it?
Yeah, probably so. And that way we can prove.
And that's what you recommend, and I
Yeah.
recommend.
The only thing is whether or not you want to actually mandate the number of hours. 'Cause some boards do that, or at least set a minimum number of hours, so that people have we can enforce that a little better. But on the other hand, if we go through the regulatory process, I don't see a problem. I think you're just going to get some opposition in the legislature from some of your auctioneers who don't want to do it at all, much less 6 hours. Maybe part of the problem. And by the way, on online, quite often you're not doing 6 hours at a time, you're doing an hour or 2 hours.
Modules.
You take one class.
Right.
Take one class.
Take an hour or 2 hours.
But I would suggest that what Anna has drafted be posted and get comments so that you'll have all that, in other words, a draft, a marketed draft, have it put on the website so that people can comment on it.
That'd be helpful, when you know what you're in for, when you contract for.
Well, it actually was
How
attached to
many
the agenda,
people are-
posted with the agenda last week,
Right.
so, and I know it was sent out to all the LAA members. So I got a
Email
copy of
blast.
that, yeah, an email blast, so.
Which is inaccurate.
Hmm?
That was the one that was.
Is that what you're looking at, sent out to everybody? And what I'll do is I'm gonna take it out and just make the discretionary.
Just do it on discretionary, and resend it to the, or whoever's got it, put it on the website or whatever.
Well, we need a motion, right?
So moved.
So first we need, okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor of the discretionary
Aye.